Hello and welcome to the Hankook Berlin E-Prix from the historic, the iconic Tempelhof Street circuit. This is round 13 of the Formula E World Championship, and it's Oliver Rowland who stands on the verge, the precipice, the brink of his first ever Formula E title. This is very much the spiritual home of Formula E, having raced here 19 times in its history since it started in 2014. Welcome to the first session of the weekend. This is FP1, and I'm delighted to say we have the dream team of Katie Munnings, Billy Munger and Andre Lotterer here to talk about what could be a very historic weekend. There is one man with a target on his back this weekend, and it's Oliver Rowland, but he's given himself such an incredible points gap, Katie, that this could be the weekend that he seals that championship title. How big of a moment is it for in his Formula E career?
It's massive. He's definitely got one hand on the trophy already. He did the hard work at the beginning of the season. The last few races for him have been a bit frustrating. I think he's not picked up as many points as he wanted. Luckily, Porsche have been there, but they haven't also picked up as many points as they would have wanted to try and close the gap to him. So it's all to play for here, though, because he had 2 podiums when he was here last year. So he's in with a really good chance.
Yeah, he has history here at this track, Billy. But, you know, we've had rain already this morning. It's forecast again for tomorrow. What kind of challenges is that going to throw up for Oliver?
I mean, he's the boy from Barnsley. He's used to these sort of mixed conditions that we're potentially going to see here this weekend. We're expecting rain tomorrow, so that is going to really spice things up. We know in Formula E that can be challenging. Also, the surface of this track is worth noting because the asphalt here is really rough and abrasive, so that can have an impact on how the drivers have to approach the tyre build-up and preparation, particularly in qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he does have past form here with those 2 podiums that he had last year. And also, interesting, Andre, if you look back at his results from this season, in all of the double headers, 3 out of 4 of them, he's had a win and a second-place finish. So if he's good on the first day, he's good on the second day, which the fact that this is a double header is going to play into his hands, hopefully.
Yeah, he definitely built a lot of confidence in this championship, and that helps as a racing driver. When you're confident, you know you can get out there and perform, and you have an edge on the others. So yeah, it's a bit extra pressure as well, because it's in his mind. He's going to think, I can clinch the title, so that could distract him a little bit from his ultimate goal to just do well. That's all he needs to do. But also the competition is going to be fierce. The Porsche drivers were really strong here last year. They also were performing very good, so they have a very good and efficient powertrain. So definitely they're not going to give up anything, and Pascal Wehrlein performs very well under pressure. So I'm sure he's going to do everything to keep this championship alive.
Yeah, nothing is easy in Formula E, that is for sure. Let's take a look at how the championship standings currently look. So at the top of the drivers' standings, we do have Oliver Rowland. Lovely 69 points gap between himself and the Porsche drivers, Pascal Wehrlein, and just behind Antonio Felix da Costa, who won here last year. Taylor Barnard, Neil McLaren there on 92 points in his rookie year. Unbelievable. And then just 17 points between the 6 drivers from Dan Ticktum down to Sebastian Buemi. Now, Oliver Rowland may have the Drivers' Championship tied up, but take a look at the team standings, because there is so much still to play for. Just 10 points between Porsche and Nissan. And then you've got DS Penske, McLaren, Mahindra, who are all bringing podium finishes in the last few races. So you can just see how tight it is when it comes to the team's championship. Now, the question is, what does Oliver Rowland actually have to do this weekend to bring home the title? So as it stands, he's got this 69-point lead. When the checkered flag drops on the Saturday, he needs a lead of 87 points or more, which means he has to outscore Pascal Wehrlein by 18 points. What does that mean? It means Pascal Wehrlein has to get 0 points, and Oliver Rowland needs either a win or a pole position and a second place. Katie, is it going to happen today or tomorrow? Is it going to happen on Sunday?
I think more likely to be Sunday. It would be tough for that to happen tomorrow, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm in the same position. I think this weekend it is very possible for Oliver Rowland to wrap up this championship. It will be really tough to make it work on Saturday because Porsche won't want to let him off easy.
I've had weekends with double zeros, you know, so that can happen. And if you look at Nick Cassidy last year, almost had the championship in the bag, and then drama happened. So I hope to see some drama to have the championship at the last round.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's find out how this first session goes for Oliver Rowland and the other 21 drivers. Let's go to our commentators, Tom Brooks and Alan Mitch.
Just remind you that on the outlap, we are taking the attack with arming for system check.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Nicky. Welcome along to the 13th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. 12 rounds down, 4 still to go. Very excited to see what is going to happen. Can Oliver Rowland become the world champion this weekend? Well, he's got a new teammate on the other side of the garage. Sergio Sette Câmara jumps into the seat courtesy of the fact that there is a clash with the World Endurance Championship in Brazil this weekend. So he will be taking Norman Natto's seat here. You can see going into the chicane, also the hairpin bend rather, of turns 6 and 7. There's a bit of a miscommunication going on between those two drivers, but keen to see what Sette Câmara is going to be able to do on the other side of the Nissan gate.
You know, just listening to the pre-race discussions in and around Rowland having a bad couple of races. Yeah, certainly he's not picked up the points, but that doesn't affect him. He's been competitive at the time. He's just struggled a few times in qualifying. You know, he's ended up at the back, but he's muscled his way through. I think right now it'll be just ensuring he gets as high up as possible, making sure he's clean and tidy, and the points will be there.
So, full course yellow in 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow, please.
As the voice there of Marek Halichevsky, our race director here in Formula E, just talking to the drivers, doing a full course yellow systems check to make sure that all the drivers can hear them at the points around the circuit. Yeah,
but I think this session, though, if we look at the weather forecasting as well, the circuit is still a little bit damp from a rain shower a couple of hours ago. But the reality is the weather forecast for tomorrow is very, very wet. So actually, it may not be the most relevant session around here. But Andre, you've driven round here in the wet.
I don't remember actually.
Yeah, there's so many races here.
Yeah, I've done, I think, 11 races here, like with the season in the COVID times where we did 6 races in 9 days, but it didn't rain back then. So, but it is an interesting tarmac here. It's very abrasive but low grip, so it stresses a lot the surface of the tire. So you try to keep the temperature cool but still at the limit, and you could face some graining on the tires as well. So yeah, it's a special dynamic for qualifying, but then also to keep the consistency in the race and extract the maximum out of them. It's we call it a bit of a cheese grater here, like that surface. But yeah, I don't know how it will be in the rain. Normally it could be a bit more grip than normal asphalt due to its abrasive characteristics. So let's see. But this is also a different tire this year, so everyone is learning a bit. There's been an evolution in the compound compared to last year, so no one knows. So I think it's still a relevant session if it's a bit more drier on Sunday, for example.
Yeah, a bit of a roll of the dice for a lot of the drivers this weekend. Also, slight change to the circuit coming into this one as well. Still 2.3 kilometres long, but turns 3 and 4 have been reprofiled. Last year, they were quite a tight 90 left and 90 right. This year, it's been opened up a little bit more, so drivers are going to be going quite flat out through there, going into qualifying in particular. Depending on the weather conditions, it could prove to make it even more tricky because of the extra speed you're carrying through that section.
Yeah, probably, but that's the job of the drivers, you know, to adapt to this, and we might see like sub-minute lap times.
Brakes, tires. You have a 6-second gap with the car behind.
Yeah, just the engineer guiding a bit, Sergio Sette Câmara here to build his lap and find a gap and focus on his first push lap to get the best out of it.
Yeah, it's great to see Sergio back in a Formula E car for the first time since London last year. Of course, spent a couple of seasons with the ERT team as they were known in 24 and Neo prior to that. He's been a Nissan reserve driver for this year, and I think he's quite buoyant about his possibilities this weekend. He was talking to one of our crew prior to this weekend and saying that, you know, he's never really had a competitive car in Formula E. Now he's got the car that's leading the World Championship. He's got a great possibility.
He does, but he's also going to have to play the team game as well, you know, because they've got the team's title and they're in the fight with Porsche for that. But at the second point is obviously he needs to cede if he is in a situation to allow Oliver Rowland through.
Well, if he's doing that, it means that he's doing well already.
Exactly.
So, but no, it's great for him because he never really had a good car, like you said. And actually, he was doing very good against Dan Ticktum back in the days when he was his teammate and a very strong qualifier. So, and if you look how good is Dan Ticktum doing now, there's definitely talent in his hands. And yeah, very important weekend for him because he doesn't have a big drive this year after he lost his drive last year.
Yeah, one of two replacement drivers on the grid this weekend. This is the other, Felipe Drugovich, another Brazilian. He's in the second Mahindra seat. Nick de Vries, of course, racing over in Sao Paulo. Great to see the 2022 Formula 2 world champion on the grid here this weekend. I went down to the paddock, caught up with him earlier. He, again, is relatively optimistic about his chances. He knows it's going to be an uphill battle. And actually, it's the first time he's been racing in a single-seater car since he won the F2 title back in 2022.
Yeah, another important weekend for him because it's one of the highest-rated new talent that has been coming up, and he has opportunities in F1. He's an F1 reserve and test driver at Aston Martin. He did the 24 Hours Le Mans for Cadillac. But yeah, he's definitely focused on succeeding in single-seaters, so it'll be really interesting to see how well he does here compared to the others. And if he's really that talented, it should come out.
Everything feels okay. I just feel that my steering wheel is not fully straight. I have brake urgent.
So not the most encouraging signs from the cockpit there for Stoffel Vandoorne.
Well, you can deal with a steering that's not fully straight, so the mechanics will adjust it later. Maybe an alignment issue, or sometimes it can be a bigger issue if it's a damper or something. That's a bit more annoying, which they will find out after the session. The brake urgent is probably an alarm from the systems, so they're definitely going to have to look deeper into that because that is not something you want to go into the session with.
Certainly not, but one thing you mentioned earlier on, Andre, you could see sub-1 minute laps. Seti Camera is now quickest on a 59.730. So already, after only 6 laps, they are down underneath the 1 minute. So circuit definitely quicker. Tyres, you also mentioned, are different from last year as well. But this is 2 seconds a lap faster at the moment, over 2 seconds quicker than last year.
Yeah, that means during the race with the pit boost, that will means we will see lapped cars. Because I think the pit loss is around 54 seconds, so with the gaps there will definitely be lapped cars on track.
So strategically come Saturday, that's going to be a major factor. When do you play, and also if you've got 2 cars?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, the thing is in Formula E, the field, everyone has a really good rhythm, so I don't think that it's like in other championships where you're going to hit the back marker and you're going to depend on blue flags to not lose time, I think. But it's still better to be in clear air, but maybe not. Like, you know, you want to be behind someone to save energy.
Yeah, well, let's pick up that discussion in a few moments' time. Oliver Rowland and Sergio Sette Camera for the Nissan team, currently 3rd and 5th quickest. But, of course, Berlin is also the home of the rookie test, which takes place after the conclusion of the race weekend here. And Abby Pulling is going to be in one of those Nissan seats. Saunders is down talking to her in the pit.
With you, Abby. Of course, this is with Formula E experience. You topped the timings in the rookie test we had in Spain earlier in the year, the pre-season. Excited to be back, looking forward to getting behind the wheel again.
Of course, I mean, a lot of work with the Nissan Formula E team and taking my new role after the women's test, as you mentioned, topping that. Now this is another kind of step in my career, a whole new as well. Obviously, being after the race weekend is quite a big deal.
Everyone always wants to know, when you come from other championships, like F1 Academy and everything, what are the key differences? And what's the difference in feeling and the way you have to approach getting behind the wheel of one of these electric beasts?
Take on, it's a much simpler car. Much simpler car what I'm racing in now, and the F1 Academy car. So you have to have a massive, what's the word? Capacity. You have to have so much capacity in these cars, and more so than I think the viewers even realise. And yeah, it's a lot to take on. I mean, the different modes, and then you obviously have the regen and everything. It's like driving 3 different cars, essentially. add that into a race situation, and then it's a whole other thing. So it's really exciting, and I'm learning a lot with Nissan, and just looking forward.
The way you put that, three different types of cars, that's great. Well, we're very much looking forward to seeing what you can do on Monday, and of course, big weekend for the team.
No, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Thanks, Andy.
Great to hear from Abby Pulling there. Sorry for some of the microphone issues down in the pit lane there for Saunders, but good to catch up with the F1 Academy champion of 2024. Looking forward to seeing what she is going to be able to do. Just one point, by the way. Lola Yamaha Apt have got a new livery for this weekend. They've partnered with Superman, as in the film that's coming out. So the car looking a little bit different, and the driver sporting a special livery. So just something to keep an eye out for this weekend for that team. Just under 29 minutes to go in this session. On board here with Taylor Barnard. He was brilliant this time last year, his second weekend in Formula E, and he scored points here in Berlin. He's got a great opportunity to do something special here this weekend as well.
Taylor Barnard's been one of the stars of the season, in my opinion. He's jumped in Berlin last year as a sub, became a super sub within the first qualifying session, and after that he has been, I think, excellent. What do you think, Andre?
Definitely, it's great to see young new talent performing that well, and I think yeah, it's a hot shot, I think, for a new manufacturer coming, for a manufacturer to have a new driver. So I need to find out what's going on in Radio Paddock, like who's got their hands on him for the future.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? Because we know the McLaren name is going to be disappearing from Formula E at the end of season 11, so 22 cars down to 20, 2 fewer seats available for next season, and Taylor Barnard, of course, very hot property. We understand the rumour is that it's likely he'll be in the car that we're riding on board with, in a Penske machine for season 12, which will be really interesting to see how he fares there. The question is, which of their drivers is going to make way for that?
Well, I was going to say it's not a two-seater car, so which driver is actually going to make way for Taylor Barnard? Certainly he's going to be a driver of the future, whether it's just in this championship or in others. He's clearly been quick in single-seaters, and everything he's jumped into. Very natural, I would say, but with a pretty good racing brain.
Yeah, and great maturity as well, like you said, the racing brain, the way he behaves on track, where he plays himself, and very little mistakes. You know, Formula E is a very difficult driver to, very difficult championship as a driver to jump in, because there's not much practice. You know, you can only almost learn by crashing, because the wall is the limit, and it's very difficult to find your limits and push the limits. But he's done that really well, and yeah, outperform a lot of drivers that have a lot more experience.
It's so interesting being at this latter stage of the season, because it's a bit like a Fleetwood Mac album in the paddock. It's full of rumours at the moment. The likes of Taylor Barnard, of course, being a hot property. Da Costa maybe going to Jaguar. Dan Ticktum, is he being courted by Porsche or Jaguar for the future as well, as we look at Pascal Wehrlein doing some pit boost practice? Just a point on Pascal Wehrlein as well. He's feeling a bit under the weather this weekend. Not a weekend that he'll be wanting to do that, in particular, given the prominence that's on him and Oliver Rowland in the Drivers' Championship. Wehrlein currently 69 points adrift of Oliver Rowland, and he'll be hoping to be on top form.
Rando missing a bit the apex.
Missed the apex. I think he was in a different country.
Probably blaming it on the human track. You know, we always have excuses.
Looking at Van Dorn just coming up towards turns 6 and 7. This is the hairpin where we saw some drivers getting it a bit wrong this time last year. Let's have another look at Van Dorn coming down in towards turn 2. So on the brakes, locking it up. This is coming into the attack mode area, but he wasn't going for it. He wasn't taking it, wasn't going for it, was he?
Would have been a very good activation there. But he's probably going to adjust a bit the brake balance for the next time round. In these cars, you can adjust the brake balance very in a complex way on the initial hit, on the migration, also corner by corner. So you probably sit down with the engineer that for the next session wants a bit more rearward brake balance program for that section.
So Hughes is quickest now in a 58.5. So the circuit is quick.
Yeah,
it's no question. We're going to see some pretty super quick times when it gets to 350 kilowatt.
Yeah, about 4 seconds a lap faster than we were this time last season in FP1, of course, now with four-wheel drive for the 350 kilowatt modes as well. So very excited to see what the driver's going to be able to do as this track continues to evolve in what could be the only dry session of the weekend. Going down in towards turn 9 and 10. This is Antonio Felix da Costa. 5th place for him last time out in Jakarta. Interestingly, though, his teammate Pascal Wehrlein, well, he came over the line in 10th place, was initially classified in 10th, but courtesy of the fact that Buemi's podium was reinstated following the event, he actually was classified outside of the points positions. The upshot is it's now Porsche that lead, but only by 10 points over Nissan in the Teams Championship with 4 races left to go.
And if you think about it, in reality for Nissan, that's been a one-man show, with Oliver Rowland being the person that's gained, what, 95% of the points for them. But definitely from Porsche's perspective, I would say they've got the upper hand there, because they've got 2 drivers that can deliver and do deliver. And it's going to be quite a struggle for Nissan to, I think, rest, even though it's 10 points, to rest that 10-point lead.
And it's a very big and important thing for a manufacturer like Porsche to clinch a manufacturer's title. I remember last year we in the WEC Championship winning the Drivers' Championship, but they lost also the Manufacturers' Championship in that weekend, and it felt like they lost everything. And we were so happy to win the Drivers' Championship, and they were sad that they lost the Manufacturers. So they got the Drivers last year. Who won the Manufacturer last year? Was it
Jaguar?
Jaguar. So
yeah.
It's something they didn't achieve yet. So I think they're very focused on that.
Well, from a financial perspective, the Teams Championship is the one that you want to win as well, isn't it? You know, that's where you get more bonuses and so on and so forth. And they were gutted to miss out on it after Wehrlein won the Drivers' Championship. On board, or looking rather, I should say, at Max Günther coming down in towards turn 1 into turn 2, decreasing radius left-hander, Skymaster corner as we nicknamed it last year. Had an incident between Van Dorn and Muller noted.
If anything, I would try to get a tiny bit more rear support. I'm not too happy with the car, but that's maybe when I need to go faster.
Unsafe rejoin, the point between Van Dorn and Muller. Didn't see what happened there, but we'll keep you updated with that as it continues on. Of course, double header this weekend, so we see the return of pit boost. And as you were alluding to earlier, Andre, lap time's incredibly short now here, now under a minute, up to sort of 58.5 in these dry conditions in the first session of the weekend. There is a possibility, if you pit in the mid-pack, you're going to come out right in front of the leaders, and there's going to be no blue flag, so that's going to be, well, I think interesting to see how it changes the complexion of not only that driver's race, but also possibly the drivers behind.
It's also going to be hard for us to comment. Who's where, who's what. We're going to have to really follow up which positions are the correct ones. But yeah, it's a complete new dynamic, I think, and that could also be a strategic element for teams to leave one car out or put one car into the pit boost to pit and slow someone down. You know, so it is another aspect that could be played with.
Here's Barnard coming through, first person on a bit more power, drops it into 58 flat.
So 57's achievable in the dry then, quite clearly. 50,
he's only 400s away from it, so I would suggest that that's definitely achievable.
It is almost dry. There's some slightly wet patches, but you know what? In these conditions, sometimes the tires function quite well because they don't overheat, and you actually almost get a better performance than when they really get too hot.
With it being quite overcast today as well, air temperatures in and around 23 degrees, but the track temperature hasn't actually gone up. It's quite low in the mid-20s as well.
Yeah, fair bit of wind prior to the start of this session as well, after the rain. Just seeing one of the McLarens there just driving on the racing line. That was Sam Bird that Robin Freitz was making his way through on down into this triple apex left-hander, sort of reminiscent of turn 8 of Turkey, if you remember that circuit of Istanbul Park. Through that final corner and into the pit lane then for Robin Freitz. The two Envisions currently 20th and 21st at the moment, but I have to say something of a resurgence to Buemi's career this year. A victory in Monaco, a podium last time out in Jakarta. He's been on pretty good form.
Well, I think also the team as well has lifted up from, they had a really dire time last year from being competitive, I think, in every season in Formula E to suddenly dropping off the scale. And it looks like they've got a little bit of structure and focus and confidence back as well. And Sebastian fought for his podium last time out, had it taken away from him, but the team asked for a review, and they won the review, and so therefore he got his trophy back.
And there's no doubt Sebastian is a very talented driver, and you know, throughout your career there are sometimes some waves of years where you do so well, and then some waves of 1 or 2 years where it's not happening. And although you put in the effort, you put in the work, you have the talent, but sometimes things don't line up. And yeah, when they do line up, it works out. So it was great to see that from him.
Interesting you should say that as well, because this time last year, if you remember, he was over doing the World Endurance Championship because we had a clash same weekend. This year, he's prioritised Formula E. He's here this weekend rather than going and racing a Toyota.
Well, I don't know if he's prioritised or the team has prioritised. At the end of the day, one of the teams that you drive for has got to have priority over the other one. And I know Envision were very, very strong in their opinion that they needed to have priority, or they would look at choosing other drivers.
The interesting part is that De Vries is taking priority in WEC, and he's racing for the same manufacturer, which is Toyota. So Toyota has one driver on priority there and one driver in priority that in Formula E. So I think it's something you negotiate at the beginning of your contract, and probably what Sebastian had is like, look, let's look at the championship standings in WEC and see how we are. If we have a good shot at winning it, then I'll come and do the WEC, and if not, then you can put this in a contract with the positions. You know, if by that race we are not in the top such and such, then you take this option or the other option.
Good lap time from Felipe Drugovich in the Mahindra. Just got up to 7th quickest ahead of his teammate Eder Mortara. About 1.5 seconds or so still off the pace, but still plenty of time for the lap times to decrease in the remainder of this session. Riding on board here with Dan Ticktum, the most recent race winner in Formula E, and what a result it was. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house in the Cuperqueiro garage a few weeks ago when he claimed the checkered flag in first position for the first time. And an interesting journey for him here this weekend as well. Rather than jumping on a plane or a train and getting himself over here in the conventional way, he decided to go out onto Facebook Marketplace, buy a $6.5 grand Cadillac limousine and drive it all the way down to Berlin.
So now we know what he did with his prize money, huh?
On board here with Dan Ticktum. This is a great idea of how this circuit is, and actually how bumpy it is as well when you're riding on board. As you said earlier on, Andre, quite an abrasive surface, this one, and being an old airfield, it's made up of, you know, quite large sections of concrete. Yeah,
it's a very unique track because it has a city track feeling because of the track limits being the wall, but it is a bit wider, like a permanent track. It gives a bit permanent track feeling as well by not being in the city. And then this really unique abrasive surface. It's a flat circuit, but still bumpy because of those plates and how they join. And yeah, it's a very unique dynamic. You need to keep the car on a good platform, not roll too much, but still give mechanical grip to the tire, because you don't want to put too much energy in those tires because they suffer a lot on this abrasive track.
Nick Cassidy, a two-time winner of the Berlin E-Prix, won it once back in 23, and of course the first race here last year when he came from 15th on the grid to take the checkered flag in quite commanding style. He's taken one win this year. That was in Shanghai in the pouring wet conditions, so opportunity knocks if the weather is as we're expecting it to be. Pretty suboptimal for the remainder of this weekend. You can see he's fastest in Sector 2, making his way through the last few corners. You hit the first apex, miss the second, and then hit the third one. Let's see what the lap time is going to be for Cassidy in the Jaguar as he comes to the timing line. He goes up to P5, half a second slower than Taylor Barnard.
Andre, you mentioned about sometimes it's just not clicking for Jaguar after, you know, their performances like last couple of years and winning the team's title, as you said last year. It's certainly not clicking for them. They haven't just found their mojo, they've lost it and searching around, but you know, this could be the one where they start to regain a little bit back again.
Let's have a look here at Felipe Drugovich. This is making his way into the final few corners, isn't it? Yeah, just
nice how it floats in there. You see the car rolling, gripping, driver moving on the steering wheel.
Would have been nicer a bit closer to the apex. Missed it by
apexes were always optional extras. If you get the apex, sometimes you scrub more speed off, you know. It's always the reason I gave.
This is an excuse I never.
Yeah, you should try it sometime. Yeah. It works.
I got to drive the Gen 3 car here last year, and I was so far away from the apexes that I was in a different postcode by the time I made my way around the lap. Looking at Jake Dennis here as he comes through turns 6 and 7, really wide entry into that corner, creates a great overtaking opportunity, and also down here into turns 9 and 10 as well. It does bottleneck up slightly as you go through the mid part of that corner, however. So 15 minutes left to go then in this session. Looking at Jake Dennis making his way through the final series of corners here at the Tempelhof circuit. And what is Dennis going to be able to do? Well, it's been personal best for him in Sector 1 and also Sector 2 as he now aims for the timing line in the Andretti. Goes up to third quickest. Andretti celebrated their 300th victory quite recently in all classes, I should say, that they race in. Brilliant result for that team. As we look at Roger Griffiths inside the garage. Inside Eda Mortara's car in the Mahindra as well. Finished second, of course, to Dan Ticktum last time out. So, I mean, what do you think about that there, Alan? Because he had a great opportunity to take a victory, finished second in the end. Do you think he'll be disappointed with that, or do you think that's, again, another strong result that he'll be happy with?
No, I think it was a good result relative to, you know, what he's had so far through the season. You know, I have to say Mahindra have been strong this year. They've done a lot of good work, developed in the right direction, and it's good to see. But also for Edo as well. You know, Edo nearly won the championship a few years ago, and so therefore I think he understands what it takes. He's definitely quick, there's no question about it. When he came into Formula E, he nearly won in his first race in Hong Kong back in the day, and I wouldn't be as surprised if he was really up there and competitive this weekend.
Yeah, Mahindra hadn't scored any points coming into this weekend 12 months ago, and Mortara went and stuck it on pole position, got that team's first points of the season. So there's a great opportunity for that team. And again, on the other side of the garage, what can Drugovic do? Mortara now fastest with a 57, and that's just bettered, as I say that, by Pascal Wehrlein, who goes to the top of the piles. Although he's feeling a bit under the weather, the lap times coming quite well for him so far.
Yeah, we know that there is pit boost for this particular weekend, and we saw already a couple of teams practicing pit boost. Maloney is under investigation for an infraction of the pit boost, and so therefore that's one of the reasons to practice, is so that you actually get any problem sorted out. It suggests a state of charge infraction, so we'll have to wait and see what actually comes from that.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a fine at this early stage of the weekend there for Zane Maloney with that special Superman livery. Otherwise, we have found the Barbadian's kryptonite already. He currently sits 17th fastest in this session. As we look at the second of the Tag Heuer Porsches of Antonio Felix da Costa, just improves by 1 place, going up to 13th quickest inside the garage at the moment. What's the atmosphere like down there, Andre? Have you had a chance to chat to the team?
Yeah, I went to say hi. I wanted to have a few chats, but they were all busy in a meeting, so I stole a bit of their sweets and did a chat with Antonio. But yeah, I wanted to go see my ex-engineer Fabrice to see how they're doing, what's the mindset going into this weekend. Obviously, you know, they are trying to keep this championship alive, but again, like we said before, also the Manufacturers Championship, that is probably their priority.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Here is Zane Maloney, the Barbadian driver in that Lola Yamaha app team. Podium for them in Miami, courtesy of Lucas di Grassi. Maloney still yet to get off the scoreboard, believe it or not. He's been close on a couple of occasions, including at Shanghai, where he finished 11th, but the elusive points have just evaded him at this stage of the season. Could this be the weekend where we see him finally getting off the bottom of that scoreboard?
He's a rookie in the championship, one thing. He's a Formula 2 race winner, so there's no question about the speed and performance. But I think for him, and especially as well for the new powertrain, the efficiency in the race is one of the areas that they will be working on.
Yeah, it's not an easy situation for him because Barnard is doing so well as a rookie, so it puts a bit of shadow for him. But yeah, with a new team, it makes sense.
Let's have a look at Maloney's teammate Lucas di Grassi. This is coming down in towards turn 1. Then he's going to lock the left front. Well, he's going to run it a little bit. Oh, yes, the apex there, okay.
It's di Grassi.
Yeah, di Grassi, yeah, close up to the wall on the outside here, isn't he? Just coming close to the back of Robin Fries.
Touched the wall there, no?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Just a kiss.
Yeah, so Lucas di Grassi currently 9th quickest, but the Lola Yamaha app team looking pretty good so far at this stage of the free practice session. Maloney 7th fastest, di Grassi in 9th quickest. And just to finish the point you were talking about there about Taylor Barnard, of course, yeah, he's been the talk of the town. But, you know, Lola Yamaha, of course, a team that are quite early in that collaboration with the Yamaha and Lola package, that's a synergy that you've got to get working together.
Yeah, you have to invest your time in it, which is not easy as a rookie because you obviously want to shine and show your place that you belong in this championship, but it's difficult with a new team. So his direct comparison is Lucas Di Grassi, which obviously has a lot of experience, and he can do some really good results. So I'm sure the team can evaluate him quite well based on that.
Looking here at Sergio Sette camera, currently sitting in the pit lane. We saw a few changes going on, and sort of the part of the front nose cone off a few moments ago. Looking at the shock absorbers, what do you think they were likely to be changing there, Andre?
Well, mostly the dampers or the roll bars. You know, it's you prepare your session, and you have a few setup options that you have on your run plan that you might want to go through. And yeah, maybe he was not so happy with the ride, either too stiff or too soft. So you know, you can ideally also change the springs, or there's a lot of things you can do to affect the car balance.
Well, on board here with Oliver Rowland, the champion-elect in waiting, as he winds himself up for a flying lap in this session. Let's see whether the British driver is going to be able to improve. In the meantime, let's go down to the pit lane, catch up with Saunders. He is with McLaren development driver Ella Lloyd, who will also be driving in the rookie test here post this weekend.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Ella, obviously big opportunity on Monday. You know, you've had your experience with Formula E behind the scenes, but now getting on a track like this, how are you feeling about the experience? Looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Obviously, doing the all-female test last year, I've had a little taste. Now I'm ready to, hit the track on Monday and put everything in practice.
Of all the cars to be doing it in as well, you know, we've seen a lot of good quick pace with this McLaren across the season, especially with Taylor Barnard. Is that an added bonus getting to do with McLaren?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, being part of the DDP program has led to this opportunity. So yeah, I'm really grateful for it and can't wait to jump back into the car.
We're very much looking forward to seeing what you can do on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to hear there from Ella Lloyd, the McLaren development driver, who'll be competing in the rookie test here after the Berlin E-Prix. And to talk about that, it's a really important test for the teams and these drivers to give them opportunities. I mean, quite a few drivers, including the likes of Taylor Barnard, Nick Cassidy even, Jake Hughes, all came through from the rookie tests.
As Andrew mentioned earlier on, you don't get very many opportunities to test, and that means for the driver, but it also means for the teams as well to actually look at other driver options. So it's important for both, for the drivers to be able to say, this is what I can do, and also for the teams to be able to evaluate.
Yeah, especially on Formula E tracks, which you can't really replicate on private tests. So let alone be a private team, which is not allowed to test on tracks. They only have the official test day before the season starts, which is most of the time in Valencia. And the manufacturer teams, they can go do the development test, so they have a bit more privilege, but there's no real Formula E street style circuit. So we used to go to some places, try to replicate hairpins and put cones and try to somehow do it, but there's nothing like a real Formula E track. And also you have the reference from the race weekend so that they can compare it to and see their weaknesses, and also evaluate the drivers if they can really do something positive.
That's exactly it. I think the reference point for the, in comparison to what happens during the race weekend is one part. Obviously, if it's a dry race weekend, but the other thing is there's going to be all teams here with 2 rookies each. So therefore, it's actually a good spread, and it's a good influence of youth talent. You mentioned Taylor Barnard. There's a perfect example of someone that's came in and just shown what can be done with a rookie.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's Johan Aim, the race engineer for Oliver Rowland. Rowland's just improved up to 3rd quickest in the last 6 minutes of this session. And that'll be cause for smiles in the Nissan garage at the moment. Verline, though, currently fastest for the Tag Heuer Porsche team. He sits in the garage at the moment.
Shows his wife and his kid.
Just watching on. Nice to see.
Local race.
It is, yeah, of course. Of course, local race, home race. 3 drivers celebrating the home race this weekend. Pascal Verline, David Bettman, and also Maximilian Günther. So hopefully they'll have some home support in the grandstands. It's always a well-attended event here at Tempelhof. Such is the time it's been on the Formula E calendar.
Cut back well.
Got the second apex, so I mean it's a good exit that.
He was deep in coming in though. He was pushing on the entry.
what's really interesting now with those cars, we used to lock up a lot. You still see cars that lock up, but the systems are so smart that, I mean, you're not really allowed anti-locking, but they still manage somehow to create anti-locking systems there. So the drivers press the brake pedal pretty hard, but the car doesn't lock up. So it doesn't mean that you make the corner. It just means that you don't lock up, but you're still going to miss the corner because deceleration is just a bit too late.
Do you think, though, going into turns 6 and 7, you can almost afford to miss that first apex and, you know, clip the second one, such as the radius of that corner?
Did you do that last year?
Yeah, I did it every corner.
Yeah. And did it work?
Well, I mean, I wasn't setting a blind in that time by any stretch of the imagination, but I kept it out of the wall. I didn't win the challenge that we set, and I'm still...
You did win the challenge.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah, I know. I've never forgotten it. It comes back to haunt me in my nightmares. Nicky Shields won that challenge.
Did you go full throttle on the straight line?
I did, yeah. I didn't wave to the judges. That was my downfall, unfortunately.
You always should wave to the judges.
Well, if only I'd have known. Anyway, Dan Ticktum down into turn 1 here for the Cupra Kiro team. Let's have a look at Sam Bird on board here with him in the Neon McLaren. This is going to be an interesting point in qualifying, and he just gets stuck behind, I think, a Mahindra there. It might have been Drugovic.
I think it was his teammate, wasn't it?
Yeah, his teammate. Was not happy about that. He tried to slow down and go side by side. Sometimes, you know, there's like a bit of road rage in the heat of the moment to try and prove your point to someone who messed your lap up. But yeah, it can happen. It's free practice, but you know, we all try our best, and it's annoying sometimes, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's a shame for Sam Bird as well. He's not had a particularly brilliant season, hasn't been on the podium since that emphatic victory in Sao Paulo in season 10. And, you know, if you look at what Barnard's been able to do on the other side of the garage, are we going to see Bird maybe going on to pastures new away from Formula E for season 12?
What's the fastest 350?
Fastest 357.78. 2/10.
Oh, I could destroy that.
That's a man with confidence, isn't it? I like that. Oliver Rowland.
He's on a 57.9.
He's just not even 2/10 off. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that from Oliver Rowland.
The question is, how many others can destroy it?
You know, the reason why he says that is, I think you also need to focus on your 300 laps to make sure you get into the duels. So what do you do now? Do you go for a 350 lap, or do you try to really maximize your 300 kilowatt lap to really make sure you go into the duels?
Which is also the weak part of the last few races of Oliver Rowland.
Yeah.
He hasn't quite qualified as well as he had done at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting point as well. How relevant do you think this session is going to be compared to the rest of the weekend? If the rain falls as we're expecting it to tomorrow, and then possibly even worse on Sunday...
Well, to be honest, it doesn't matter. You have to do your best every time you get out on track. You can't rely on the weather forecast 100%, so you never know. So your job and your duty is to get out there and do the best job you can.
And as Andre mentioned earlier on, could be wet tomorrow and dry on Sunday.
Exactly.
So this could be your only session before the race that you've got that dry running.
Got a yellow flag out, just in the middle sector. And then
start-finish straight.
Yeah.
Car in.
It's the DaCosta.
Hit the wall.
Yeah, Antonio Felix DaCosta, red flag out with just over 2 minutes left of this session. And it looks like Antonio Felix DaCosta has come to the barrier there.
Looks like he's clipped the wall on the right-hand side.
Some power slide tyre marks there on the exit of the corners. So it's a bit unusual, that.
Yeah, you see the front wing damage there on the right-hand side for him in the Tag Heuer Porsche. He was 18th quickest prior to that. That will be the end of the session because there's only a couple of minutes left to go anyway. But that's going to mean that drivers who would have wanted to get practice starts in will not be able to do so. Those who were on personal best lap times or a couple of personal best sector times coming through will not be able to improve either. And we wait to see what happened there for the Portuguese driver.
Everyone, this is race control speaking. We had to present red flag, so the session will not be resumed.
Yeah, so there we go, confirmation of that. So his teammates on board here with Pascal Wehrlein. We're looking at DaCosta. Is there going to be contact? There is contact between the two Tag Heuer Porsches at the end of free practice 1. Wehrlein goes into the back of Antonio Felix DaCosta, sends his teammate into the barrier on the start-finish straight. What on earth was going on there?
I have to laugh a bit because this is a very unusual situation.
Don't go and play poker, Tommaso. Well, it's not the game for you.
It's
a
misunderstanding.
I think Antonio wanted to give way to Pascal Wehrlein and misjudged a bit the distance and the speed. Probably Antonio didn't go full throttle, and then but yeah, giving a laugh in the whole paddock. But hopefully there will be no penalty for Pascal Wehrlein there, because usually
it's under investigation for causing a collision.
So,
but everybody's laughing, but everybody is also thanking themselves it's not their drivers that are involved, because it could so easily be.
Yeah.
Tell you the talks in the garage, they're going to be quite interesting, that's for sure.
Let's have a look on board from Da Costa's point of view then. So coming through the final corner, Da Costa's... Hang on a second.
I got hit by Pascal on the wall. I told you he's preparing. Yeah, he was preparing, but he was already in front, and then he stopped in the last corner, man. Understood.
Yeah, so Pascal was going to launch his lap and obviously in full throttle. And I think what happened is Antonio also wanted to go, and then he got a bit... yeah, they will see the incident, nothing he could do there. But I think Antonio probably was a bit confused that Pascal let him a bit by and ruined maybe his lap. So then he aborted that lap, and Pascal was launching the lap, so I think it's just a consequence of maybe Pascal having slowed Antonio down initially.
Yeah, miscommunication clearly going on down there at Tag Heuer Porsche. Well, Tommaso Volpe has got a nice dinner time story to tell tonight, and well, you can see the rest of the grid there making the most of the humour of that situation. It does bring an early end to free practice 1 here, though, in Berlin, and unfortunately not a happy one for the man who won the most recent race here at Tempelhof, Antonio Felix da Costa. That was the start of his superb run of form at the end of the season. If you remember, he went on to win 4 out of 5 races.
Yeah, he was really unbeatable here. And that was season 6, was it?
I know, this was last year.
You're talking about last, yeah. But yeah, also here, like...
season 6, I think it was. He
where
dominated when we had the COVID year here.
He's always been strong here, so we're definitely going to see him doing a good weekend.
Yeah, 2 wins he had back in 2020 and a further podium as well. He had 6 races in 9 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember also doing 3 days of simulator for each layout, meaning 9 days of sim. 3 days clockwise, 3 days counterclockwise, and 3 days for the new layout.
Eyeballs on a spin
That
dryer.
was quite a long time in Weissach at the simulator.
But there was no spectators here. You had to eat your food on your own. You went to your hotel room. There was no... It was...
Yeah, it was a weird times, but
very glad we're back into normality.
So let's have a look at a rear view then of Antonio Felix da Costa. So da Costa's going to lift off the gas here and get biffed up the backside.
Well, he didn't lift. I think it was just Pascal being on 350 with a lot more power. So,
well, there I suppose are the dangers between 350 and 300 kilowatts.
Well, I think, to be honest, looking at it like this, Pascal misjudged his... You should be able... He tried to time it perfectly without lifting and thinking Antonio would get out the way on time, which he was a bit greedy there, not going off the throttle, I would say.
Well, free practice 1 comes to a rather bizarre conclusion here in Berlin. The upshot is it's Pascal Wehrlein who ends up fastest ahead of Eder Mortara, Nick Cassidy in 3rd, championship leader Oliver Rowland in 4th, with Dan Ticktum completing the top 5. Good session for the 2 rookies, returning Sergio Sette-Camera and the rookie Felipe Dragovic in 15th and 16th.
Well, just as I was preparing to kind of summarise FP1, thinking, oh, it was all quite straightforward. And then that happened in the last 2 minutes. I mean, a collision between teammates in FP1. Clearly a miscommunication issue, but that shouldn't be happening at this point in the championship, should it?
I think that's one of the most confusing things I've seen in Formula E. I mean, just 2 teammates with a team that are fighting for the team's championship, all the context that needs to be, you know, given around that. And then for it to be just an incident that was so unnecessary. You've got Pascal starting his lap here in 350 kilowatts. Antonio is finishing a push lap on 300 kilowatts. He is flat out when he gets hit in the rear of his car there, going down the start-finish straight. Caused huge damage to his car, took him out of the end of FP1. just a very confusing situation that seems so unnecessary that Pascal could have maybe just given him more time to start his lap, given him a bigger gap so he wouldn't have been in the way. But yeah, very confusing, Nicky, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, Katie, from your perspective, a bizarre incident. Is it a sign that the pressure is mounting? You know, we've talked about this is the final opportunity this weekend. If Pascal Wehrlein and Da Costa aren't on the podium, their championship title fights are over. Is this a sign that the cracks are already showing?
I think definitely when you get towards the end of the season and it all ramps up, you reach that sort of climax. But I think more to the point of the atmosphere now in that team, you've got to think what it's going to be like. They've got to work as a team because we know how important the team's championship is to them, having been, you know, not winning that last year, winning the Drivers' Championship. They really want that, and also manufacturers. And now so they've got to work together after that. I don't think Antonio is going to be very happy. I don't think Pascal is going to be very happy. From the engineer message, it seemed like they were sort of more on the side of Pascal initially. So I think that's going to be quite a heated conversation when they go back, and I think it's going to be quite tough to be able to reset tomorrow going into a race day, to have clear heads and not let this feeling linger.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be in that debrief room, but one man who will be in there is the team principal, Florian Modlinger. Let's hear from him now.
Florian Modlinger, now that is a very interesting end to the session, because on one hand, you're happy with the pace. Pascal topped the timings going into qualifying where you need those 3 points, but what you don't want to see is your two drivers coming together like that.
Yeah, that's clear performance-wise. Pascal was there from the beginning. Antonio also at the beginning strong, at the end not. But what happened at the end, we have to speak with the drivers. This is something you don't want to see clear. No contact between teammates. Both were preparing for a quick lap. Antonio for 300, Pascal for 350. And Antonio passed in the last corner Pascal, and then on the straight there was contact. And there we need to clearly investigate why and what happened. Both were told that they are on a prep lap and the next lap will...
It goes without saying, this is a big weekend for you and the team. You know, the championship is on the line. It's a home race for the team. A case of maybe in the moment getting the better of their judgment?
Yeah, home race we want to deliver clearly in front of the German fans. But here we get the same points as everywhere else. We focus on our job and then we see performance-wise happy, but that's not how we want to start event here with such a FP1 incident. And we will speak now to the drivers, you can be sure.
Just looking forward now for the rest of the weekend. We know that points are essential, those 3 points for pole position being the first crucial ones to gather. How do you feel about that going into this weekend? Are you confident in the package?
For sure, we showed on every racetrack that we are competitive, and that's our target with both drivers to get as many points as possible to extend the lead in the team championship, and the target is also to attack Nissan in the manufacturer championship. There we closed in the last 3 races from 44 points to 3 points, and we are really close now.
Well, we always expect a bit of drama towards the end of the season, but potentially not like that. Thanks, Florian.
Yeah, this we don't want to see.
Thank you.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Saunders. Always a very measured response from Florian, but it will be an interesting debrief. It wasn't such a measured response from the rest of the paddock, though. Should we see how the other team principals reacted to that incident? So we can see Tommaso Volpe there from Nissan having a good old chuckle.
Yeah, I mean, he's just probably putting himself in Florian's position there and going, I'm glad it's not me, effectively, because 2 teammates coming together is the last thing you want as a team principal.
I think it just shows it's such an unusual situation that we have at FP1, isn't it?
I know, it's so bizarre. We've stood here as well, where the drivers are going up to get weighed, and they're all saying, I've never seen anything like that before. What's just happened?
Oh, well, it's good to see that spirits are high in, you know, most of the teams in the pit lane. But we've also got to say, you know, looking good, Oliver Rowland, P4 in that session. I think, you know, how will he reflect on that? Quite a respectable end.
Yeah, I mean, he stayed out of trouble.
Yeah.
So that's important, as we've just seen from the end of FP1 there. But the pace looks strong, and he started his weekend with good momentum. Obviously, we're expecting mixed conditions for the rest of the weekend, so things can change. But you'd obviously rather be up at the sharp end in those points-paying positions to be able to, you know, go into that weekend, this double header with that key momentum, which could seal him the championship.
Yeah, and then also a great session for Nick Cassidy as well. You know, he found form in Shanghai. He's had it here in the past as well. This could be another opportunity for him.
Yeah, exactly, and we've seen such honesty from him about this season, and Jaguar as a whole, so it's really nice to see that kind of turning now. And I think they've got so much potential, and they've shown it so much over the past few years that it's been quite difficult to watch, and for Mitch as well this year. So, yeah, I hope they have a good result, because they do deserve it as a team.
So, as we've mentioned just a couple of times, this could be a big weekend for Oliver Rowland, but it's not straightforward. Take a look at the permutations of how he could be crowned champion.
Season 11 of Formula E has taken us from Sao Paulo to Mexico City, Jeddah, Miami, Monaco, Tokyo, Shanghai and Jakarta. Each round turning up the heat and the tension as the championship heads towards its climax. The title race has reached the home stretch with 4 races left to run, starting with a return to a Formula E ever-present doubleheader in Berlin. So, how did we get here? This season has largely been dominated by one driver, Nissan's Oliver Rowland. With 4 race wins and 7 podiums, 5 front row starts, including 2 pole positions, to say impressive would be an understatement. But the past few rounds have narrowed the gap, with Rowland's 3 closest competitors all scoring podiums, whilst the best the Brit could do was P5. A shadow of the performance we've come to expect from him this season going into crunch time. Have these recent results potentially opened the door for a different end to the story? Rowland tops the championship, but what does he have to do to get the job done, to seal the deal and win his first title in Formula E? And what do the rest have to do to keep their hopes and dreams alive? Time to get your calculators out, it's time to get mathing. Realistically, the top 4 drivers, leader Oliver Rowland, reigning champion Pascal Wehrlein, his Porsche teammate Antonio Felix da Costa, and rookie sensation Taylor Barnard are still in the mix heading into Berlin. Rowland has a healthy 69-point lead on Wehrlein. So, the Brits from Barnsley, regardless of what happens in Berlin, will go into the final weekend in London top of the championship. But if he leads the championship by 87 points after Saturday's race in Berlin, the best anyone can do is match him on points, and Rowland would take the title on races 1. Failing that, Rowland needs a 58-point lead after Sunday to seal the deal and win the championship, with that being the same number of points on offer over the London doubleheader finale, and again, the Nissan driver would be clear on races 1 in the event of a tie. So what about the others? Wehrlein, da Costa and Barnard need to score 11, 14 and 20 points minimum to stay close enough to Rowland and keep in title contention after Berlin. Which essentially means if da Costa and Barnard didn't score points in the first race in Berlin, for example, they'd have to be on the podium in the second race. Rowland holds all of the cards, quite rightly after the phenomenal season he's had, the likes of we have never seen before in Formula E. Is it a case of when rather than if for the Nissan driver? Tempelhof is no stranger to deciding Formula E champions, but will it do it again? Find out in Berlin on Saturday.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff there. Thank you, Saunders, for unpicking something that is rather complicated to explain. But basically, very simply put, tomorrow, if Pascal Wehrlein scores nothing, Oliver Rowland's got to take a pole position and a second place or a win. So there's quite a big expectation on Oliver Rowland if he does wrap it up tomorrow. But if we look back at what Porsche have been able to do to capitalise on, I think Oliver Rowland's only taken 11 points in the last 3 races. So it was an opportunity, really, for Porsche to kind of get ahead. But they scored, I think it was a double podium in Shanghai, and that was kind of it in the last 3 races. So was that an opportunity missed, do you think, Billy?
I guess you could call it that in hindsight, but at the time, obviously, the team are going to be trying to maximise the points wherever they can. But I think in Formula E, just what we've got right now is we've got so many teams who are in the mix. You've got the likes of Dan Ticktum at Cooper Kiro, who won the last race. He's never won a race before. All of a sudden, Porsche as a team, they're looking to, you know, a team that they supply their engines to now. Porsche engines are used at the Cooper Kiro team, and they're able to take those points off of them. So I think it just more comes down to the fact of how closely and how tight the field is spread in Formula E right now.
And Andre, I mean, we can see the delivery of poor Antonio's car coming back, not quite in pieces, but a fair amount of damage. I mean, on first impressions, will the car be fighting fit again for tomorrow, or do you think it could have a consequence in the race?
Well, yeah, that was the highlight of the free practice there, right at the end, with a big confusion between both drivers. I don't know if they were on the prep lap or on the push lap, but yeah, definitely some misjudgment there from both drivers. So I'm sure the meeting will be quite interesting inside the garage. But it looks like the car will be fine. But sometimes, you know, a strong little hit like that can cause a crack somewhere on the powertrain. So hopefully it'll be fine, because then that could mean also a grid penalty if they have to change valuable parts on the car. But yeah, not ideal, but this can happen.
And, you know, OK, they can fix the car, but what about the consequences for their team dynamics, the relationship between the drivers? I mean, when something like that has happened to you in the past, how easy is it? And perhaps, you know, it's more, some drivers are better at it than others, to go, OK, I've got to reset on Saturday morning, I've got to forget about what happened on Friday, put it behind me, and not let it kind of niggle at you over the course of the day.
Yeah, there are different elements to it. Obviously, you know, you have to focus on own performance and perform in qualifying, but you know, from what I know, the relationship between Pascal and Antonio is not at its best, so that's definitely not helping the atmosphere in the team. And let's see how and who will say sorry and who will accept that situation to be able to move on from this issue. But yeah, definitely not perfect, but yeah, I'm sure both drivers know what to do when it's time to go and qualify and perform. It was at the end of the session, so he didn't lose any track time, so that I think they'll be fine.
Great stuff. Well, let's go down to Katie, who's found Alan McNish.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, we're just having a chat about some of the competition across the grid now, because it feels like some teams have really stepped up this season. I mean, we were talking earlier about Cooper Kiro that have got their first podium since season 1, and now we're outside Mahindra, and it feels like halfway through the season, they literally just flipped a switch in performance. What do you think made the difference for the team this year?
Well, they've been building for a couple of years where they had sort of quite a dire period where just it wasn't working. Powertrain wasn't efficient. They were quite quick on occasions, but also restructuring the team and trying to look towards the future. These things don't usually happen overnight, as you know. And then suddenly something just all falls into place. The drivers get a bit more confidence. The engineers understand exactly what they need to give the driver so they can deliver. And Edo Mortara was able to do that last time out as well, and also in this session, following it up here as well.
Yeah, and it was great to see him obviously get a podium, and you can see how much it meant to the team this year, you know, to follow on and reward that performance that they found. But for a driver like Drogovic to come in and have to step in with the pressure of the team's championship, Nissan fighting for that, how tough is that going to be? And if we're going to have wet weather, is it going to be easier for him to try and perform and get some good points?
Well, I would have said the less it is stable, the better it is for someone new coming in. And so without doubt, that does help. And the weather does look as if it's going to be a bit changeable. However, for him, he's not really got the pressure. It's actually going to be, from Edo's point of view, to lead it. And for Felipe, it's about getting as much of it out as he can as a driver, but also to deliver for the team.
Well, whatever the weather, it definitely is going to be a weekend to remember. So let's have a look at what we've got coming up for you.
He wanted to progress from the 4-wheel quad bike to a 2-wheel motorcycle, and I said no.
It's cool to discover a bit of a new world, dive into it a little bit, have a bit of a taste of, you know, how these guys out there on the fields might feel.
You know, 3 years at the back of Formula E, people obviously seem to forget that I used to be all right, you know, so, and I'm still all right, yeah, so.
The grid is cleared and it's going to be all eyes on the lights.
So much great content and action coming for you this weekend. One driver I want to talk about is Taylor Barnard. I mean, he has had a great rookie season so far, but there is something that escapes him. His first win. And, okay, he was 7th in that session. What do you think you rate his chances? I mean, now I feel like the field is tightening up. I think it was 1 second between 1st to 18th. You know, the margins get finer and finer race after race. Is that opportunity of having his first win slipping away from him?
Well, everyone is on their A game, you know, at the end of the year, like you said, the margin's getting smaller and smaller, but he's also improving at the same time and getting more and more confident. So if he really is a top player in this championship, he definitely has the package to do well. And who knows, maybe we can see some surprise at the end of the year from him, and yeah, prove his talent and show that he deserves a top drive and a really strong position in this championship.
I think there's a few other factors as well. The fact that, you know, his Super Sub performances came last year here before he'd made his full season debut here this season. McLaren as well, announcing the fact that they're not going to be on the grid next season. He'll want to reward the team that's given him his first full season in the sport. So I think if he could get that first victory, if there's an opportunity, he's the sort of driver that will seize it with both hands.
And then also, let's not forget the DS Penske drivers, because Jean-Eric Vergne, Max Günther, again, you know, a great session for them. They've had a real sort of turn in this second half of the season, and the performance and the consistency is really coming.
Yeah, I think definitely the performances seem to be coming. And this weekend, I think, is really important for them with the Teams Championship. They need to make up a bit of ground to the front two teams, Nissan and Porsche. And this is the weekend where they're worrying about each other, that they can sort of go under the radar, pick up a lot of points and take the fight to London.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Max Günther is the only other driver this season to have taken more than one win. He's got two to his name, other than Oliver Rowland with 4. Well, there we have it. That is FP1 wrapped in Berlin. Join us bright and early at 9 a.m. for FP2 and find out how the session will continue.